Well, good morning, everyone. So this is the Excel add-in, the fifth of our financial reporting webinars for the week. We have had so many different tools coming at us in the last few years, and as Macola has moved forward and other products have moved forward to fill that reporting void, we thought it would be good to have sort of a one-week SLAM product comparison so that folks can see what's going on and what their options are. So I hope that those of you who have been in the other ones through the course of the week have enjoyed those. I am going to show you today the Excel add-in, and that is a tool that is a part of the Macola ES suite as well as the Macola 10 product. So I'm going to show you how those launch now. Some of you may be using those, and some of you may just be trying to figure out how you're going to use those tools or how you're going to do financial reporting in those products. So they only work with Macola ES and Macola 10. They do not work with progression. And they are just part of the system manager, so it's not a separate licensing. It's not a separate product. It is an exact product. So to start with, I'm just going to show you how those are launched in different ways. The first way is just off the Macola ES screen. So for those of you who have seen Macola ES or use it today or have had a webinar on Macola ES in the past, it is a part of the GL reporting package and is launched from there. The other way is in Macola 10. You can launch, well, before I do that, you can also launch it just inside of Excel. If you're on a new Excel spreadsheet, the add-in is added to the menu bar as a way that you can launch it within Excel. The other way is through Macola 10, and there are two touch points in Macola 10. One is to make it part of a workspace, and if you've not had a chance to see the Macola 10 workspaces, I know Andy had a webinar on that earlier in the week. We've done some others, and we're going to have some others in the future. But you can make that a launch point off of the reports menu or any other menu that you need to inside of Macola 10. So this is the Excel add-in used in this is the CEO workspace. But that can be added anywhere that we need it to be added. And also you can just do it off of the core ERP menu inside of Macola 10 on the GL tab under the reports and launch it in the same way. So it's over here under the GL, the Excel add-in. There it is. So any of those methods to launch it or directly within Excel, as I mentioned before. So I've already done that and created a spreadsheet that we're going to go through today. And I've just created a few touch points on this spreadsheet, so I'm not going to go incredibly deep on all of them. I've lost track of how many commands there are in the Excel add-in, but it's got to be in the 60 or 70 range. So we're obviously not going to have time to do all of those today. But when you install the Excel add-in or you launch it from the Macola ES or EM10 screens, it adds an add-in toolbar to Excel, and it adds some functionality buttons here. So these are all related to the Excel add-in. So a little tour of those. The first one is just to show you which companies you have access to. When you first log into the Excel add-in, it checks your security and makes sure that you're allowed to look at the things that you're allowed to look at. So it passes through the same roles and security that your Macola ES or Macola 10 rights have, so that if you have access to these, you can do these certain tables, you can do the functions within Excel. It also allows you to do multi-company. And so I'm only running on a single company right now, a demo company, 001. But you do have access if you have multiple companies, whether they're a historical company and a current company, or whether they're subsidiaries or divisions that run as separate companies. You can open up all of those and have access to all of that data in Excel, which allows you to do some pretty interesting things like consolidating different databases, comparing or consolidating or contrasting two disparate charts of accounts, that type of thing. So there is the ability to do that. There is also full lookup capability. So instead of having to go out to Excel or to Macola 10 or Macola ES and doing a lookup of your chart of accounts or the other things we're going to look at, all of the things that you can search in Macola, you can search in the Excel add-in. So, for instance, I can go out and look at general ledger accounts through this tool. I can look at people, vendors, customers, inventory items, and so on. So that brings up why the Excel add-in, in my opinion, is a powerful tool for Macola ES and EM10, and that is some of the other financial reporting tools that we've worked with Macola in the past are general ledger specific. So you can do things in the GL, like create financial statements and those types of things. But the Excel add-in actually gets outside the GL and allows us to do things in these other areas, like customers and inventory items and so on, even project accounting and project management. So this becomes a powerful tool for getting data out of the system wherever it resides, not just in the financial modules. But if I'm looking up a certain piece of information, I'll just jump out here to a cell so I don't disrupt what I've already created, and I just want to find a GL account that I want to run a report on, then I can just look up GL accounts, say okay, and the same lookup that I have in Macola 10 or Macola ES is available to me. And so I can type in sales and find those accounts that I'm looking for and create my report from that. And then we'll get into how we're going to create commands and functions to use that information, but you have access to any of those tools and lookups that reside, where the data resides inside of Macola. All right, so the next two we're going to spend a little more time on, and that is the functions and the report wizard. So when you use Microsoft Excel, there are commands that you're familiar with, like the sum command and the average command and those types of things that are preceded with an equal sign. When you install the Excel add-in, it adds to that library of commands. And so what we get now are all of these commands that allow us to get data in different parts of the system. And I'm going to go into several of these, so I won't bore you with those here, but we're able to run, just like the sum command, there's an account balance command and so on. And all of them are wizard-driven, whereas with a lot of the Excel commands, you have to go to the help file and understand what piece of information or what variable you need in what segment of the command. Here, you simply change to what you're trying to accomplish, like account data from the GL, and the wizard changes. And then I get the ability to go out and look at the GL accounts. And then once I select what GL account I want to report on, let's say that I want to report on the Adventure Bikes account, then it says, well, what piece of data do you want to get? So each of these functions have different requirements and provide different data. So in this case, this is just account data, so it's a description of the GL account, how the GL account functions. It's not GL financial transactions in this particular case. It's just some characteristics of the GL account. So each have their own purpose and role, and I'll go into those when we get into actually creating some spreadsheets. The other is the wizard, and wizards, the report wizard. There's a number of report wizards that come out of the box. As a matter of fact, everything I'm showing you today comes out of the box. I've not created anything unique other than the spreadsheet itself. But you do get a balance sheet, a budget, which we'll get into a little bit, AR and AP agings, some AP and open vendor analysis and customer analysis, and even down into financial ratios and inventory and scrap reports. So those are out of the box. There is a way to create standard reports that will add to this menu. We're not going to get into that today. Frankly, I've never had need to do that. We usually just create our own, which I'm going to show you here in a little bit. But there are a number of these that are valuable and will allow you just to come in and click a button and run, for instance, an aging analysis. And again, the wizard changes, and I can run a customer analysis or vendor analysis, and certain criteria within the wizard makes itself available. And you can just run that and take the defaults and get what has been designed in there. As I said, I don't typically do this. I usually create my own, which is what I'm going to do with this example. So let's look at, I've created several types of spreadsheets here, examples, so we'll just step through these and give you a taste of what the capabilities are. I assume that you have some Excel experience, as most of us do, so I won't go into how Excel works necessarily, but how this makes use of it. So in this top section here, above the gray shaded line, I've created a quick P&L through the revenue section, where I've put my chart of accounts along the left-hand side here. And then this field is that account data. So what I've grabbed from here is the description. So when I showed you the wizard before, I showed you how you can pick just that, some accounting characteristics. And in this case, it's getting the account data from A7, and it's grabbing the description, which is what this filled when I created this through the wizard, it filled in the field name, which is OMS25, and that returned the description of that GL account. And then I simply copy that down, and it relates to the account to the left of it and brings in that description, and so on. So if I were to change this to 3102 just for fun, it changed this to adventure bikes, and all the dollar amounts changed as well. So we'll put that one back. So you can see how those are changing. So every time I change the variable that this relates to, that changes. Well, the same thing is happening in this cell, except I used a different command. Instead of account data, I use the account balance command. And the account balance command needs a little bit more information. So it needs that GL account. But in the way that I've defined this particular one, I've said that I want to grab the year 2014. I want to grab the period, which is January. And in Macola ES and EM10, unlike Progression, you can actually put journal entries into the system, not post them, and see the effect of that journal entry on your financial statement. So I've said that I do want to see unposted journal entries. If I change that to a 0, any unposted journal entries would be filtered out. By leaving it as a 1, I get to see unposted journal entries. So again, it's a matter of preference. So in this formula now, I've said go into the GL and grab for this year, this period, unposted journal entries for this account and place them in this cell. There are a few other things here that the wizard would drive you through. For instance, this -1 is the default company, and I mentioned earlier I only have one company. If I had multiple companies, I could reference that cell up here and combine 2 companies into this cell if I wanted to. In this case, I haven't. And some of these other things are, for instance, one of these variables at the end is year-to-date or current period, those types of things. And the wizard drives you through those to come up with the right result. I've said that I want single period information for January. And then as I copy this over, I now change to unposted journal entries in February for the same year and the same account, and so on. So as I change these formulas and copy them across, and again, if I change this variable to a 1, my numbers look the same between the 2 columns. So it's simple to do that. What I typically do when I design a spreadsheet is I highlight the things that are my changeable fields, and I let the rest, Excel manage the rest. So this is a matter of design and how you want your spreadsheets to look. So usually I will come in and change things in the yellow fields, and I'll have everything to the right and underneath that feed off of that. Again, that's a matter of preference. But I've taken this spreadsheet and I've gone all the way out through period 12. And for the accountants on the line, you're all wondering how this happened. I have no idea. It's demo data, but you can see that it actually worked. So we've got amounts in each period. We've got the financial sum for revenue through here. In fact, I could jump over into the GL in Macola and run a GL report and tie out these numbers, which I've already done. So simple account data and account balance drove this spreadsheet. In this range, or in this cell between the 2 gray bars, what I've done is demonstrated how you can do this with a range. So instead of all of the detail here, maybe that's fine for the casual reader in the accounting department, but for management, they want something a little more summarized. So I've actually summarized this by a range of accounts. So same command. So here you've got the same account balance. Everything's exactly the same. The revenue number here is the same as here. but the account range allows me to put it all on one line. Now, I can't use the account data here because it doesn't know which of these accounts I want the description from, so I just keyed in revenue. So, and I would come down here and do cost of goods sold and so on. So a simple way to consolidate your statements into something more readable for management, perhaps. Another one here is the same idea, but this is a quarterly statement. And so the range here is the first through third month, which I've been consistent all the way through here in doing the first through third month. That allows the same kind of information to be summarized in this column. So if you were to run the numbers on that, you would get about $90,937 because that's January, February, March in Q1. We've gotten the same result here. So now I've got a quarterly financial statement summarized by revenue by simply changing not the command, but this range. In the next column, instead of this number feeding off of this year, I've actually just changed a simple variable, and I put 2013 in there. And 2013 for Q1 in this range of accounts was $28,000. So just a simple variable change. Design this, copy it to the right, and make a simple change in the variable, and you build statements very quickly. The third column brings in another new formula, and that is the budget formula. So in Macola ES and EM10, unlike progression where the budget table wasn't really useful, you would do it in a spreadsheet, put it into Macola, into progression, and then you bring it back out into the spreadsheet. Macola ES and EM10 has a place where budgets are retained in the system, and there are reporting tools inside of Macola ES and EM10 to report against that budget. So it's really nice to have your budget in Macola ES or EM10 versus progression. But still, you want to do some reporting inside of Excel, so you bring that information out through the budget command. And in this command, you will see it's a different formula, budget balance, and a lot of the same things. It's bringing in the same range of accounts, it's bringing in the year, it's bringing in the quarter, but it introduces a couple of other variables, and one is very specifically the budget scenario. So in Macola ES and EM10, you can have a budget for a year and you can have revisions of that budget. So I can report on budget 2002, and then I can replan in the middle of the year and create 2002.1. And so then I can choose which of these budgets I want to compare to. And as a matter of fact, I could even copy this column to the right and compare it to both budgets, simply by making budget scenario 2002 in this column and 2002.1 or whatever your second budget scenario would be. So then you can start to compare actual to last year to original budget to replan, those kinds of things, very simply. Another small function that I find interesting in the Excel add-in is that you can report on accounts without reporting on the GL accounts. So this is called the category data function. And the category data function allows you to just say, I want to get assets, which is level 1 of my financials. And it brings in all the assets. And here I can say get liabilities, which is level 2 of my financial statements. And this is all coded through the chart of accounts. So cash and receivables and inventory are coded as an asset. I say I want to report on assets, and those balances come in, and the same with payables and et cetera, and revenue and expenses. So this is the CAT data and the CAT balance. There is also a sub-CAT data and balance where I can actually expand this a little bit and get assets and then get the subtotals for receivables, inventory, cash, and payables and withholdings and liabilities and sales and cost of goods sold and so on. So you can, without having to go through, like up here with the GL accounts, you can simply just say, I want to get my balance for receivables, payables, and so on, and create financial statements. The rest, in terms of these variables, are the same type of function. And then if you have in progression, they were called departments and profit centers. In EM10 and Macola ES, they're called cost centers and cost units. And this allows you to segment out your GL into those cost centers and cost units. So in the first area here, I'm just dealing with cost centers. And here I've put in not only my 2014, my Q1, and my unposted flag, but I've added a cost center variable, which in progression would have looked like department. In Macola 10 and ES, it looks like the cost center. And that variable changes field to field. Down here is the CC balance formula. And the CC balance says grab for this period of time in this year and this cost center and this account range and put that number there. And that works all the way across here looking at a different cost center. And then I've grabbed from here the actual account, the data description for that cost center. So this is all formula across the top, not me typing in titles. So as I change this one to SV, it's something else because I typed it wrong. But it does change with the variables. So a very nice way to then take your GL account, 3100-something, and break that out from a revenue standpoint. And then some companies have cost units or divisions where they try to bring those into their financial statements and they want to see them separated out. So within this one, we've added another command called the cost unit balance and the cost unit data for the description. And that variable reads this. So by putting in a different plant or cost unit, I then bring in the P&L from that range of revenue accounts. So I'm pretty sure this is my $90,000 we were looking up above, and as is that. Yeah. So there's $90,000, there's $90,000, just a matter of how you want to present that. So that's the GL, and that's just a taste. I want to keep moving through this, so I'll step off of that and move over to another tab where I've just done a very simple vendor aging. And this demonstrates a new command that is not in the GL. This is outside the general ledger. It's called creditor outstanding. There's also one called debtor outstanding. So creditors are vendors and debtors are customers. And in this particular case, I laid down here the vendor numbers that I want to analyze. This is a command called creditor data. So whatever this vendor number is, it grabbed the description or the company name. Same thing along here. So these are just formulas reading these variables. And just to show you that it's not just financial data, I wanted to grab another piece of data. So I grabbed the country that this vendor is from. And I can grab zip codes, phone numbers, user-defined fields, anything that's in the customer or vendor table. So in this case, I grabbed the country variable out of the creditor data function. And then this one is where the dollars come in. So it's a different command. This is the creditor's outstanding. And there's some variables out here that says whether I want to show checks and fully paid and those kinds of things that the wizard drives you through. But basically, it's grabbing this vendor and this period of time, and then it's putting those outstanding balances in place. So I've got a 30-day, a 60-day, a 90-day, and something over 90 days for their total payables. Very simple. I could put detail in here if I wanted to or something along those lines. But just to give you an idea that you can get outside the GL and you can look at that kind of information. So another one, just to get some other non-financial data, is HR data. Very simple view of this. I just wanted to give you a taste of this. But this allows me to put in an employee number and then grab that employee's HR data. In this case, I grabbed his name, full name. I could have done first name and then last name. So there's a lot of information in the HR table that we'll be able to get. And just for fun, I grabbed his date of birth. And for those of you who know Andy, who works for us, I'm sure that's not his date of birth. This allows us to bring in non-financial data, but use it in a financial way. So one of the things that we've done in some statements is sales reports, where we can bring in a salesman's code and grab in the GL data a transaction by customer and create sales reports by salesman. Or at Algorithm, we create consulting revenue by consultant by having this ability to get outside the GL data and get HR data and customer data and vendor data. So it all works together to create the report that you need. In inventory, I've created some other ones just for fun to show you how we can get at that data. So here's a couple of inventory items in my demo company. And in this one, I've used the item data, which is a description of the item. And in this field, I went out and grabbed the user-defined field. So if you've got user-defined information in the inventory database, you can grab it and put it into the Excel spreadsheet. And again, I can bring in financial data for this item within a cost center or what have you, and really get some fine-tuned financial reporting information. So I'm going to get outside the Excel commands now and show you a few other tools. Up on the report wizard, I mentioned that there are some static things like receivables and payables and agings and that type of thing. There are a couple of other functions in there that are pretty valuable. This one's called table data, and this allows us to go out into the Macola table of our choice and bring in fields that are in that table. So I went out into the inventory location table and I grabbed an item number, the location, the standard cost, the quantity on hand, the quantity allocated, and the quantity sold period or prior year. There's some ability to filter that down through here. So on the item number, I said equals bike AS. And when you return that, you get exactly what you asked for: the item number, the location, the standard cost, the quantity on hand, the quantity allocated, and the quantity sold prior year. This all came through this wizard called table data. So you build that, and then you use that as a variable on some of the other tabs to get sales analysis and sales by salesman on those items, and it becomes very powerful. And for those of you who know how to write SQL queries, another wizard that comes from this is the SQL select. So a very simple way, I'm not a SQL person, but I'm going to show you in a moment how you can cheat. But if you know how to write SQL scripts, including joined tables and data outside of Macola that happen to be in your SQL database, you can write those scripts in this cell, just like you could in Microsoft SQL Server, and return that information to Excel. Now, I used a wildcard, so I have everything that's in the table, but I could have limited that. But you notice I use the table data here, and I use a SQL query here and return the same information. This is a dynamic, as any of these are dynamic with a recalc. So if I recalc the spreadsheet, or refresh the spreadsheet, then any new data will update the spreadsheet. One more tab, and this one will look very busy, but I'm going to show you how I like to cheat. So for those of you who may be aware of this, Macola ES gives you the ability to copy SQL scripts that drive data. This is true for Macola ES and EM10. If you have crystal reports where you've written queries in there, you can get the SQL data from that as well. But what this allows me to do, just to show you how a non-financial or non-SQL person like me can do some of this, I can go into a GL account, and let's say I'm going to grab my sales account, 3102, the one we were looking at a few times, and there's a Macola ES, or in this case this is EM10, an EM10 query result. So I've told it I want to see transactions for account 3102 for a period of time. I said all dates. So I've got a couple of years here, $103,000. And these fields are available through this designing the card inside of Macola. But I want to work inside of Excel. And if you press Control-Q on these views, you actually get a copy of the query that drove this view, which is something I couldn't in a million years type out, even if I knew how. But you can copy that, and you can paste that into this tool. So we'll just do it. We'll do a new one here. We're going to go into this tool, and we're going to grab the select function. We're going to paste that formula into that cell, and we're going to say OK. And there is the GL analysis for that account. Very simple to do, and especially if you don't, if you're not a SQL person, but you have access to SQL queries that have been created by someone else. Again, Crystal reports, what I just showed you by copying a query inside of Macola, all of those are available. And they're dynamic. So if the data changes, I can refresh and the data will change on that. So what I've seen is somewhat like I've done with this presentation is multiple tabs, grabbing data from multiple parts of the system, bringing them in, and then using just plain Excel commands to do things that are valuable to you. So if you wanted to grab sales by customer, there's a customer number, and we can use that and filter that and run over to the GL related tab and grab the revenue numbers and filter by that customer number. Lots of options once we get it into Excel. So one more thing I'm going to do, and then we'll be ready for any questions, is spend just a moment on on budgets. I'm going to create a new spreadsheet here. So the way that budgets work inside of EM10, let me give you a little view into that actually. If I'm going to go out to the chart of accounts. For those of you who aren't familiar, perhaps with Macola 10 or Macola ES, when budgets are updated inside of Macola 10, they're written into a tab on the chart of accounts. So this is the chart of accounts tool for the sales adventure bikes account 3102. And there are those cost centers and cost units that we spent some time on when we were using the cost center cost unit tool and the Excel add-in. Excuse me. It also writes budgets to this tab. So there's the scenario I was mentioning before, 2002. And if you had multiple budgets, scenarios, they would be listed here. And so when we update budgets, we're literally updating this tab, and then that can be used inside of reports that are inside of Macola 10 and Macola ES, or can be brought back out into the Excel add-in to be reported on there. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to use that tool, which is again on the wizard, to grab budget data. Wizard changes. Now, depending on where you are in the budget cycle, you have some options here. When I usually start a budget, I usually start it with a prior year. So I can grab from here actuals from any period of time that I want. So we'll just get to 2014. We'll grab January through December. We could plan at an item level for a product category, or we can plan at a GL account for just revenue, that type of thing. And I've actually done that in the past where I've had a budget just for revenue and then another budget just for expenses and so on. That's up to you. And then you can budget at the cost center level and at the cost unit level. You can budget at the customer level or an employee, vendors, or projects. What this is going to do is download the transactions that I just keyed in there at each GL account And then the cost centers and cost units allow me to have multiple lines for that account. So if I were to go down to my revenue account again, 3102, here, I'm planning for adventure bikes for Village Bike Shop. And then I'm planning adventure bikes for Family Bike Shop. And then I'm doing the same. So these are all the same accounts, but I'm planning them at different breaks in the things that I asked for. So now I'm a different cost unit, but back to a different customer. So each of those lines gives me the ability to plan out here to the right dollars and units for that customer within that cost center and cost unit for that GL account. And this is just bringing in prior year data, as you can see there. Excuse me, or the period that I want to use as my basis. What I typically do is create that as my source document. I'll have another tab that will be my variables. I may expect this product category to go up by 2%, or this service level to go up, or this customer to do something different. So my variables will be on a second tab, and then my third tab or multiple tabs would be my source tab times those variables equals my output or my result, and that becomes my budget upload tool. When I'm going to not save that one, I'm going to grab one more new one here. So when I do that, I have the ability, here I'm going to grab a budget scenario. This is where I might want to use an existing budget. I might want to replan it. Here are my scenarios. There's 2002, and there's a replan. And I'm going to bring that one in. And that already knows what I'm trying to, what period in time I'm trying to look at. And so this is going to bring in the budget as it was created for me, and then I have the ability to fill in this data based on that source data and variable data and create my new budget. And then this tool illuminates, and that is the write back. So this allows me to bring all my budget and actual data into Excel, allows me to use variables to recalculate my budget. It could let me update an existing budget and then write it back into Macola ES or EM10, where I can report on it using the Excel add-in or the tools that are inside of Macola and Macola 10. So I think that's a good stopping point for today with my part. Michelle, if you want to see if there are any questions, we can do that.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. I have no questions here during the presentation, but I will unmute everybody now and open it up for questions. Okay. All right. Yes.
Yes, this is Jerry with Specialty Bakers.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
When you're exporting the trial balance and you're using a main account number, can you export it where you would see the balances by period by main account number, cost center, cost unit, or cost unit, cost center?
Yeah, maybe I'm not understanding. How was that different than the one that I showed you before?
Well, yours was just showing the balances for the main account number. You know, we're in the process of reinstalling Macola ES, and
right.
I was wondering if, you know, right now, we're on progression, and, you know, I'm using the full GL number
right
when I build my financials. So I just wanted to know if the GL number, if you could export the trial balance by using all three parts.
Yeah, I think I'm still, that is actually what this is doing. This is I know this is combined. So let's see if we can do this. This is 3100. These are account numbers. I know they look a little funky to you perhaps, but these are account numbers. So this is 31-200-300.
Right, but can you get down in one, column A, your whole trial balance, and then,
I see. Yeah.
and then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. So you want account number, cost unit, cost center.
And then the balances for period 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, you absolutely could do that. The only thing that would be an issue is that you could have different cost centers and cost units. So you'd have 3,100 4 or 5 times.
Right, and that's fine.
Yeah, so you absolutely can do that. There may be yeah, you can do that.
Okay, because I mean, I'm just trying to think through this, and I think, that's kind of how we're building. We kind of plan to build our financial statements really within Excel.
Right.
Or, at least where a lot of our reporting will be done.
Right. No, I get you. Yeah, the only issue, I'd have to think about that a little bit, is that we certainly could have 5 lines of main and 5 lines of cost centers and cost units, but then what happens when we have 4 and 2 and you don't use cost centers in another one? You have to think about how to expand that. You definitely could have that relationship in 3 columns.
Say that again?
Well, let's say that you have three accounts, three cost units for one revenue account, but this one you only have. I think there's a little bit of manual intervention that would have to happen. So you list the main accounts here and the cost units, cost centers that are related to that. Yeah. Let me. So I'll take that as a note and get back to what might be easier. Here's what's going through my head is you have 3 cost units with one main account and 2 cost units with another main account. You're still going to have to some manual number. You're going to have to type in the manual main account in one column and then have the cost units feed off of that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite fine. The voice here is breaking up too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. So, yeah, I'll send you a note on that separately, Jerry.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is Cheryl, and I have a question. I actually have 2 questions for you.
Hi, Cheryl.
And keep this page that you're on right now. Now, the Excel add-in is only looking at one company. Can you look across multiple companies, like 5 or, well, in our case, 33 of them?
Right. So this command right here, this variable right here, -1, that means look at the default account. What I would do in that case is replace that with something like 100. Sorry. So this is I'm without a net. Forgive me, but I would put a company variable here, and I would put in 100, 200, 300, and this variable here, which is -1, means use the default account. I would reference this field. And same thing for here, I would do it here. Something like that. That would bring it. Now, where you get into problems with that is what if the chart of accounts are different? So then what you would need to do is put the other revenue here is 3150, right? Then this is company 1, 3100. This is company 200, and you would use 3150 as a revenue account and then consolidate them in that field. Just depends on how you want to do that. But this variable, this second variable is the company variable.
Okay. So
another option would be to do something like and report on all of them in one cell, assuming that your chart of accounts is consistent.
Got it. All right. That makes a lot of sense. The other question I had was regarding the budget. And one of the features that you mentioned is that you can write back to the database, new budget. Now, typically you have a budget and then you have forecast 1, 2, 3. Can you take forecast 1 and write back to forecast 2?
Yeah.
Am I making sense on that?
Yeah, no. So and this will be quick and dirty, but when you open up a budget, so I'm going to open up one of my budgets. Yeah, I might need to fill that other spreadsheet first. So let me do this. Well, when you open it up, it asks you where you want to, which one you want to open up, and when you save it, it asks you which scenario you want to save it to. So you could open up scenario 1 and then add in your forecast for the rest of the year, however it is that you arrive at that, and write it back to scenario 2.
Okay, so it becomes your most recent forecast. That was my question.
No, you can open up any budget that's out there and write back to any budget you want to update. So if you wanted to open up forecast 2 and update forecast 3, you could do that.
Super. All right, thanks.
There you go. Oh, nice.
Anybody else?
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
It's Kim Johnson at Alpha Point.
How are you?
Hey, good. I got a question on the write back function. So when you create a new budget mid-year,
yeah,
does it keep your old budget? Because after we publish, we certainly don't want to change.
Right. No, it does. So those are all scenarios.
Right.
So what happens when you set up the budgeting scenarios, you could have 2002 and 2002A in this example. Both are retained in the system. When you jump out to the chart of accounts, they would all be listed here. It depends on the year. So this year filter is probably preventing me from seeing both of those, but all the budget scenarios are listed. And then when you run your financial statements, you have the option of picking which ones you want to compare to. As I said earlier, you could actually compare to both at the time.
Well, but I'm not talking about a comparison. I'm talking published financial statements show one scenario, and then say from here on we use another scenario. Is that just a matter of closing a period? Will it keep the prior scenario? Because we're talking a moving budget here.
Right.
So if we publish with one budget and then say next month that budget for that cost center changes,
right,
we don't want to change the prior year or prior months.
No, you're right, you wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I would, if I'm understanding, so scenario 1 is what we published last month.
Right.
Scenario 2 is a copy of scenario 1, but we changed this month's budget number. So we still have scenario 1 up, and we have a new budget called scenario 2.
Okay, so it would just keep the current period or the published period same, and you would move forward.
Yeah, you can make a budget can be driven by a copy of another budget. It can be new. It can be a copy, or it can be an adjustment of a prior year actual or budget.
Okay.
So if your scenario 1 is solid January through March, and then you change April, you would copy scenario 1 to scenario 2, which would be would look exactly the same. Scenario 2, you would change April and forward.
Okay. I get it.
Cool. Anyone else? All right, we'll belabor it. I appreciate everyone joining. If you have questions, you can, I think you get a little form. I think a form pops up when you log out of the meeting, and you can answer or ask them there. Send them to me, send them to Michelle, and there also will be a recording of this to edit later and share with you. I appreciate everyone joining today.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you,
care.
everybody.